Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 10. It's called New Ground. So full spoilers for the episode. As always, this is a Worf-focused episode. I said that weird. Worf. It's a Worf-focused episode. Worf. There's 5 seasons. Why am I suddenly questioning how I pronounce this?
Just Worf.
Worf. Oh, Worf sounds good. Worf.
That does sound weird. Don't say that again.
So yeah, this is an episode where we bring his kid back, Worf's kid's back on the ship, and it kind of deals with something that I think, back when, the I can't remember her name, but his ex, the mother of his child, died. Mm-hmm. When she died and he kind of made this choice for his son to go and live with his grandparents, it made a decent amount of sense, but there was kind of this lingering feeling that Worf was taking kind of an easy way out here, because he just didn't know what to do, he didn't know how to handle it, and I'm not necessarily blaming him, like, he didn't know he had a kid, and all of a sudden he's got this huge responsibility that has been lumped on him in the space of like 24 hours of finding out that he has a kid. So this episode really neatly deals with all of that. It kind of like, okay, let's go back and examine why he made that choice, how he can rectify that, and how that's going to integrate into his life on the ship. And that's kind of what this does. And this episode has actually got a fairly low rating on IMDb.
Which I happen to agree with.
I don't think I'd agree with the low rating. I mean, I don't think it's like a great episode, but I think there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of good things in here.
I think it has a lot of good ideas. I don't think it's very entertaining to watch.
I think the first half suffers, and there's kind of a weird structure to it, where the ship's plot, the crisis that they're going to have to deal with, that is like, it's loosely set up near the start, don't get me wrong, it is there, but it's kind of then forgotten about for about 20 minutes, like half the episode almost, whilst we just have Worf and his kid going through their stuff. And that has a little bit repetitive, mainly because I think you at every turn that Worf is an idiot as far as this is concerned, and that he's wrong about everything he's saying about his kid. Which admittedly, so I originally watched this a while ago, and then we had to delay recordings, and I watched it again today. Funnily enough, I actually think some of the scenes were funnier on a rewatch, because instead of just being because now I knew when it was going to change and when it was going to like become something.
You're getting frustrated at it.
Yeah, I wasn't as frustrated, and I kind of like found it funnier at times, like when Worf would say something like after he has like the first big problem with his son, where the son like stole the item from the little field trip. It's a field trip. They go to another deck, but they go to like the zoo part of the ship, and he steals this like model of one of the animals, and he gets caught red-handed, and Worf is like really dishonored by the whole thing, and he has a sit down, talks about Klingon honor and all that. There's a moment where Troy, who kind of butts in a little bit here or there,
I do not like her in this episode.
I don't know, it's hard to dispute her too much when she's she's right in her assumptions that Worf's going to make a mess of this.
No, she's always right, but it's the righteous indignation of it, the way she comes across with it, that I'm like, no, I don't like you. She is definitely one of those, like at the school, she's one of those, the parents that, she's got the older kid, she's already been through this, and there's the first time parent there, and she's just laying down on them all, going, no, you're doing it wrong.
But the part that makes me laugh is when she sort of she doesn't even know about the incident. Worf tells her about the incident on the turbo lift, and then when she says, "Oh, how did you handle this?" and he says what he says, "Oh, I told him about Klingon honor." He brings up a couple of Klingon, like myths or gods or whatever he's talking about. It says, "The boy understood. That's it over." And Troy just goes, "I see." Like, that was legitimately funny to me on this watch.
Fair enough.
Because, like, yeah, okay, all right, Worf. That's it over. That's how children work.
Yeah, I mean, it was always clear, like, he was wrong, and I think that's where the frustration comes from. Why I say the episode's mostly not that enjoyable to watch is that it's very, very predictable right from the start, and it does a lot of this with Worf for a while, of just the same thing over and over until he learns the lesson.
No, I think that's a fair complaint. I do think the last 10 minutes are pretty strong when the actual, like, the big incident, the big crisis that they're getting to. The plot of the episode outside of the Worf stuff is that they are helping a scientist on a planet who's trying to basically replace warp travel, or at least the method of warp travel. Something that's, cleaner and safer and quicker and everything, whatever. And it's basically this technology where it fires like a wave that a ship will ride to its destination. So instead of warping on its own with a warp drive, it will ride this wave until it gets to its like other gate, effectively. So it's,
they're going to be surf ships.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's making me think of like jump gates and other sci-fi or something like that, where there's like an A point and a B point and you come out. Whereas obviously the Enterprise just has a warp drive and can just go wherever it wants, at whatever speed it can.
This feels like it has a lot more freedom.
Yeah, which means there'll still be a place for warp drives on like military ships for sure, because they have to be able to go anywhere. But for transport, where there's like destinations and hub planets and stuff like that,
it's like having a train station, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly like having a train station, or even airports to an extent. I mean, yeah, planes can go somewhere else and land in a field if they want to, but typically they, port to port.
They can. The reason I used trains was because it was very much they're on rails. It's restrictive.
Yeah.
It's like point A to B, nothing else.
Yes. Not unless you got the fancy one from the end of Back to the Future Part 3. They can fly.
Sure. Or you could just change the rails.
Because they're going, they don't need tracks.
You done?
I am done.
You look so proud of yourself.
I enjoy the awkwardness of you trying to no-sell it, because I know it's annoying you. So,
annoy me? Do you think anything annoys me?
Everything.
Yeah, that's true. Pretty much everything.
I mean, there's like maybe a list of like half a dozen things on this planet that don't annoy you. Everything else.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's a very short list.
Yeah. So Geordi's very excited. There's a funny scene right at the start where he's trying to like get like Worf and Data hyped. He's like, "Oh, we're going to witness a moment in time and a moment in history," and Data's like, "Every second is a moment in history." It's like, "No, you don't understand. This is important. This is a big deal." And Worf's like, "Yes, it is very exciting." Like, damn it, this is the wrong crowd. Where's Ashley Judd or someone else? I need someone else who's going to respond to my excitement.
What's the other love interest one? The one who was the hologram.
Oh, I can't remember her name, but yeah, the one he tried to like flirt with the real one, and she's married. Yeah. Like that didn't pop up on her record. I'm still annoyed about that. Anyway. So they do this test with a ship that has no one on it, of course, because they're not idiots. Like they're not testing this theoretical idea with people. And the Enterprise is going to follow it and sort of record everything and see how it works and if it's successful. And at first they're very impressed with the readings. It's like, oh, this is very efficient. It's 98% efficient, and they're all very impressed. I think Data says it's like 450 times more efficient than their warp drive. So very, very good. Saves a lot of energy. But then things start to overload and the ship explodes. And the wave is still going. So there's a lot of disappointment. But I think this is where I liked a lot of the small details in the episode, because it kind of felt like it was obeying its rules. Not so much its science fiction rules, although I think it mostly is. I don't really have any complaints. But more just like the character rules that are kind of set up here, where Geordi's still kind of impressed that, okay, for a minute there, that was actually very impressive, and if they can refine this and figure out why it went wrong, this could be a big deal. So his excitement still kind of felt true to me. And the other thing is, so the big crisis is happening, it's like a two-front thing, is the wave is still going, and it's not going to stop, and it's going to go into a planet and not only destroy the colony that's on the planet, but probably just decimate the entire planet, right? It's probably an apocalyptic event.
It does not seem like a very safe technology, does it?
There's some kinks to be worked out.
Just a couple.
I mean, to be fair, like, we have nuclear energy, and if that goes the worst case scenario, that can go horribly wrong too.
It can, yeah.
Yeah, we've had a couple of close calls.
Yeah. Don't you dare.
I was in.
Not yet, you didn't, but I can see it in your face.
Well, what do you think I'm going to say? I don't have anything to say.
No, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
No, okay. Carry on then.
Don't know what you were expecting I was going to say.
You know exactly what I was expecting you were going to say.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that was an extreme reaction.
Terrible.
Quite frankly.
Move it on.
Why are you shaking? I don't even made a joke yet.
Extreme reaction.
That wasn't even a pun. That was just a sentence.
In the context of talking about nuclear power, it's a pun. And I do not appreciate it.
Give me peace. Anyway, so that's going to happen. So they're like, okay, we need to chase, and they're trying to figure things out. Geordie gives them a couple of options. The first one's a bit iffy. The second one is more potential, but also more dangerous, in that the Enterprise is going to have to fly through the wave to get in front of it, so they can then set off an explosion, or effectively act as a stopping point and stop the wave's momentum. And they're like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do that. But it's dangerous. This ship has a lot of radiation. Not only that, part of the ship, because of the damage they've sustained in doing this experiment, they're going to have to evacuate part of the ship, because if they fire the torpedoes, then these decks are going to be flooded with radiation, so on and so on. So, okay, that's all pretty nasty sounding, but yeah, evacuate away. But there is a life form that's not supposed to be kicking around, and it is, in fact, Worf's son, who is in the zoo area because he's fascinated with these animals that he was looking at earlier. And I think what I liked about this section, obviously on just a simple level, it's Worf risking everything to save his son, showing that he does care, showing that his son that he does give a shit about him, because that's what his son's concerned about. His son's concerned that he wanted rid of him immediately, and now he wants rid of him again to go to a Klingon school. So it shows that from a character perspective. But I like that Picard, as soon as Worf says permission to leave the bridge, despite his role on the ship, Picard just says yes immediately. And not only that, immediately goes, Riker, go with him.
Go with him.
Yeah. Give him help. But the part I really like about this is that it's like, hey, that area of the ship's also one of the areas that's going to become radiated when we fire torpedoes. And Picard just turns around immediately and says, look, we have to save that planet. So if you're still down there, I have to fire those torpedoes. He makes it very clear. And it's all very understood. All the logic here, and in terms of their character choices, make a lot of sense to me.
Oh, definitely. And Worf would never argue with that decision.
No, not Riker even.
No, Riker different, but they'd both make the same decision. If they were in Picard's shoes, I'm sure.
Yeah, so they go down. The only thing I didn't quite understand was exactly when they were safe from this radiation, because they get out of the burning room with the kid, just in time.
Stand out there and we're on the comms. Yeah,
they're in the hallway, and I thought the whole deck was going to be in danger, but whatever. I'll gloss over it. You tell me they're fine, but that was a little unclear from a geographical standpoint. But
yeah, no, I agree with that. That is a bit awkward.
But
I don't think I noticed it at the time, but now that you mention it,
yeah,
definitely. They were stood right outside the room, the door shut. They just stood there, and I was like, oh yeah, we're fine now.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. One thing I do have to point out, though, is that when they go out of the burning room and we get the classic scenario where the kid's knocked out and there's a beam on his leg so he can't move, and he wakes up and it's too heavy, and Riker goes to get something to help lift the beam, and we get something that, of all things, reminds me of the 1990s sci-fi comedy Rocket Man.
Okay.
We did it on Ace a while ago, which is why it's relatively fresh in my brain.
I don't think I've seen it.
It's a dumb comedy about astronauts going to Mars. William Sadler's in it, but they end up having to go with this goofball idiot who's like a pratfall, think like an American Mr. Bean idiot who just makes one of the big jokes in the movie early on is that he breaks the door in his cryo sleep, so he ends up having to stay awake the entire time. So when they all wake up, he's got a beard and he's wasted so much of their food and whatever. Anyway, there's a bit later on in the movie where William Sadler, who's the serious captain who hates this guy, gets trapped on Mars under some rocks or something. And the lead character says, "Call me mummy," because parents, when their child is in danger, it's been reported that they get the strength of 10 men when their child's in trouble. And I laughed a little bit during this scene because Worf's kid says, help daddy, or save, he says something kind of like, please save me. And
sure.
Worf just picks up the beam on his own. Like, he gets this jolt of like super strength, and adrenaline. And Riker like comes back and he's like, oh, I guess that's done then. I'll just put the...
Yeah. Worf's just like, it's just got being a Klingon. Get used to it.
Yeah, so all I could think in my head was the scene from Rocket Man as Worf picks up this beam.
A very specific thing to conjure, given that it's not an uncommon visual.
The visual's not. I think the character just been able to like lift it up when they previously couldn't with no help. Because both him and Riker are trying to pick it up in the first place, and they can. And then Worf does it on his own. I'm not saying it's never been done, right? I'm just saying that typically speaking, it does tend to be someone goes and gets a bar and tries to, or someone more strong comes in and does it, or something. I don't know. It made me think
someone
of it,
more strong.
Someone stronger. Okay.
There we go.
Peace.
Apparently, I'm here to help you with your grammar today.
Apparently so. Look. Right? It's been a long week. There's been a lot going on. I'm sorry if occasionally there is a flub in my sentencing, okay?
No. It's not good enough. Do better. And also, why this movie, of all things?
It's what in my head. That's what made me think of.
How long ago was it you watched this?
This was back... This was like episode 13 or something like that.
Also, it wasn't in the last couple of months. This was a while ago.
Yeah, but it just stuck out in my head. It was a very memorable movie. It's not a very good movie, but it was very memorable.
I must say, I'm starting to believe you, because very specific recall you got here for this movie.
Okay, so the episode ends, Worf, and it's a pretty strong scene where Worf sort of like holds his son's hand and says, look, you could go to Klingon school and it'll be very tough, but you could accept a greater challenge, which is staying with me, and we'll make this work, and it'll be hard for both of us, but the kid says yes, and he's like, oh, your mother would be happy. And it's kind of, I think there was only one ending to this, which was Worf actually accepting the responsibility and saying, okay, I have to actually be a father. And I think there's a couple of neat moments throughout. I enjoyed the scene where he's late for a meeting and Picard is a little stroppy about it, but then when he hears like Worf getting called repeatedly by Crusher, by the teacher, he's like, look, go take care of your son. Clearly, we can have this meeting tomorrow. You got...
I love how like Worf's getting frustrated by it. Every time it goes, he's just like, what now?
Well, he has that like throughout the episode, especially the first half. Like, one of the best things about that first half is Dorn's performance, because this episode is like an exercise in making Worf squirm and like just look uncomfortable. There's a moment where they came out of like a ready room meeting, and Troy, this is the first time I think Troy speaks to him about his son and says, oh, there's a father-son thing later today after school. Are you going to that? And he's like, no, I've got meetings to do. He's like, maybe you should, make an effort. It's a good way to meet other parents and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, maybe I could reschedule. She goes, yes, I'll tell him you're coming. And she walks off with a smile on her face. And the way he stands there for like the next 5 seconds, just like like wanting to strangle her and just feeling like everything, like constantly being reminded he has a son seems to like just make him uncomfortable. It getting in the way of his work and his duty. And to be fair, I don't think this is just because he feels weird about having a son. I think he does genuinely hate the idea of being unprofessional and not being like the model. He
hates not putting his job first.
So yeah, it all plays to Worf's character. So the episode's not perfect, clearly. It does have some structural problems, but I do appreciate that everything feels very in character. It doesn't betray the characters in any way.
No, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it has good ideas in what it's doing with Worf and the son, and revisiting these ideas of where it left them off. You know, what, a couple of seasons ago at this point. But I just wish it was more enjoyable to watch.
That's fair. I did enjoy they brought back Worf's training program, his calisthenics.
Oh yeah,
because the kid's doing the novice difficulty, and
he's struggling.
He's struggling, but he ultimately gets it. I was like, oh, this is a nice little thing to put back in that's still there. It's a nice little callback. And again, it's one of these things where, like to us, video game difficulty is such like it's just part of language now. But at the time, it would have, I mean, I suppose but at this point in the early 90s, it would have been starting to become a bit more normal, at least for a younger generation who played video games.
Starting to, but I mean, because difficulty was not really a thing right away.
No.
It was just, that's what the game is.
There was definitely, because this is, we're into Mega Drive and Super Nintendo era at this point. So there's I mean, there was definitely games on those systems that had easy difficulties.
Yeah.
So and that's not to say that these words were never used in other contexts, because obviously they are. But this is a video game. Like, what they're doing here is a video game.
It's just a very fancy one.
Yeah. Still, by today's standards, very fancy. We don't have this shit. We don't have holodecks. We're
getting there.
We'll get there at some point. I have faith. That was pretty much everything. I think the side plot was fine and interesting at points. Gave Geordi a couple of nice moments. The character development for Worf is solid throughout. So, yeah. I think it's a bad episode. Like, it's not one of the standouts, but I don't think it's bad.
I don't think it's terrible. I definitely think there's been a lot worse episodes, possibly even this season. I'd have to go back and look at what we've had this season, but probably, assuming that there's been a couple of below average ones.
Well, Connor with his trademark, just negative vibe and tone.
Well, maybe next time they'll give me a good episode and I'll be really positive. How hopeful should I be?
It's a higher rating.
But
I mean, we're talking decimal point here, not not.
I won't get my hopes up too much then.
Not a whole number, but still. Next episode is called Hero Worship. Here's the description via IMDb. Data rescues an orphan boy named Timothy. I'm just makes me think of Tim, right? I see Tim Virgilish in my head when I read that. Data rescues an orphan boy named Timothy from a damaged ship. As a way to repress his own pain, Timothy begins to mimic Data's personality. I mean, that sounds potentially entertaining.
I'm going to go on a limb and say I'm not going to enjoy this episode.
Because that's a negative Nancy.
Look, it is well documented that I find most things with kid actors, and especially plots revolving around them, rather irritating.
I thought we were just going to say children in general.
I mean, you're not wrong. That wouldn't be inaccurate, but I was trying to keep it on topic.
Sure. So we'll see. So we're getting a data comedy episode, by the sounds of it. But we'll see how that shakes up next time. But let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. And of course, you can support us financially over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv for as little as $1 per month to help keep all the content coming. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, someone who's not a child anymore, at this stage even, Wesley Crusher is in complete control.